Welcome to this machine tool video on Jig Mill Operations. In this video, you'll explore what the jig mill is, why we use one, and how to use its settings. The jig mill is a very versatile machine. You can tell it apart from the Bridgeport mill by looking at the spindle position, which is horizontal in the jig mill and vertical in the Bridgeport. The jig mill can accommodate many different setups, including, but not limited to, mounting a part directly to the table, using a tombstone, and using an angle plate. The jig mill has 5 main parts: the base, the column, the head, the table, and the spindle. The base and the column are the major structural components. These hold, support, and align all of the other parts. The head moves up and down along the column. It holds the spindle and all of the gears necessary, controlling the spindle's speed and feed. The head also contains most of the controls needed to run the machine. The spindle holds and rotates the tool. The table is where you mount and secure the workpiece before machining. The T-slots clamp the workpiece down. They also hold the slot blocks, which help align the piece you're working on. Also, the table has machine slots that run opposite to the T-slots, which you can use to align your work. The machine has 3 axes: X, Y, and Z. The table is the X-axis and relative to where you're standing to operate the machine. It moves left and right. The Y-axis is the head, and it moves up and down. The Z-axis is the spindle, and it moves in and out of the head. All 3 axes have locks. The X-axis lock is next to the table. The Y-axis lock is on the head, and the spindle or Z-axis lock is toward the back of the head. The machine also has a digital readout, or DRO. The jig mill has 3 places you'll need to manually lubricate at the start of each day. The first is next to the table, the second is on the head by the controls, and the third is towards the back of the head. All 3 can be lubricated by pulling the plunger out and then allowing it to go back in on its own. To operate the jig mill, start by turning on the machine's main power. Then select an RPM, which is required to operate the spindle. Start by moving the spindle speed selector lever to the unlock or up position to unlock it. Then use the spindle speed selector dial to select the desired RPM. Point the arrow on the dial at the RPM you'd like to set. Once you've selected an RPM, move the spindle speed selector lever to the locked or down position. On the control station, press the spindle jog button a couple of times to ensure the gears in the head are meshed together for the RPM you've selected. If the spindle jogs without the gears grinding, you can turn the spindle on by pressing the spindle run button. To shut the spindle off, press the all stop button. This machine is also capable of running the spindle in forward or reverse. To select the spindle's direction, stop it, and then use the spindle forward reverse switch. Next, let's review how to move the X and Y axes. These can be moved manually, at a selected feed rate, or at rapid speed. Before moving any axis, always check that its lock is off. To move X and Y manually, move the horizontal vertical selector lever to the middle position, which is straight up and down. Then, use the hand crank to move the desired axis. To move the X-axis or the table, use the hand crank on the table hand adjustment and turn it clockwise or counterclockwise depending on which way you'd like to move the table. To move the Y-axis or the head, use the hand crank on the head hand adjustment and turn it clockwise or counterclockwise depending on whether you'd like to move the head up or down. When feeding the table or head, select the feed rate using the Quick Change Feed selector. The numbers on the selector represent the feed in inches per minute. To determine what feed rate you've selected, read the number that's in between the 2 tabs. To feed the table or X-axis, position the horizontal vertical selector lever to the left and turn the spindle on. To move the table to the left, press the Feed Left button. To feed the table to the right, press the Feed Right button. To stop the feed, press the Stop Feed button. To feed the head or Y-axis, position the horizontal vertical selector lever to the right and turn the spindle on. To feed the head up, press the Feed Up button. To feed the head down, press the Feed Down button. To stop the feed, press the Stop Feed button. You can move both the head and the table in rapid. This can be used with the spindle either on or off. To rapid the table, or X-axis, move the horizontal vertical selector lever to the left. Press the Rapid Left button to rapid the table to the left, and the Rapid Right button to rapid the table to the right. To rapid the head, or Y-axis, position the horizontal vertical selector lever to the right. Press the Rapid Up button to rapid the head up, and the Rapid Down button to rapid the head down. Avoid hitting the workpiece or the table with the tool or spindle while using the rapid buttons. The spindle, or Z-axis, can be moved in and out, either manually or by using the feed. Always make sure that the lock is off. Use the manual bar feed lever to move the spindle manually. Rotating it counterclockwise moves the spindle out, and rotating it clockwise moves the spindle in. With the spindle on, you can use the feed to move it in or out. Pick the feed rate by rotating the bar feed rate selector dial until you've lined up the desired feed rate with the plaque on the head. The feed rates are in thousandths per revolution, not inches per minute. For example, if you're feeding the spindle out and you've set the feed rate to 0.0113, the spindle would move out 11 thousandths and 3/10ths every time the spindle made one revolution. You can use the spindle feed lever to feed the spindle in or out. If you move the lever to the left, the spindle feeds out, and if you move the lever to the right, the spindle feeds in. When the lever is straight up and down, the spindle feed is off. The jig mill has a power draw bolt that screws in and out of the end of the tool. You'll use it to mount and remove the tool from the spindle. To mount a tool, hold it in one hand, insert it into the end of the spindle, and press the tool lock-in button. This rotates the drawbar clockwise and threads it onto the end of the tool. It's always a good idea to just bump this button so the drive keys line up into the tool's slots. Once the drive keys are lined up, hold the button until the tool is completely drawn into the spindle. Never hold the tool by its cutting edges, because if the drawbar would cross thread, it would spin the tool and cut your hand. To remove the tool, hold it with one hand and press the tool lockout button. This rotates the drawbar counterclockwise and unthreads it from the tool. Sometimes the tool sticks in the spindle and you'll need to use a dead blow or rubber mallet to remove it. If the tool is stuck in the spindle, simply hold it and tap it with the hammer and it should pop out. You can also move the table in and out. This is very helpful when you're using tools with different lengths. To move the table Platen out or away from the head, press the Platen Out button. To move the table Platen in or towards the head, press the Platen In button. You can set a stop for how far the table platen can be moved in, which means the table moves to the same position every time. To set the platen stop, move the platen out and put the platen position stop lock in the off position. Rotating the lock counterclockwise moves the lock to the off position, and rotating it clockwise moves the lock to the on position. Once the lock is off, use the platen position dial to adjust the stop. Once adjusted, move the platen position stop lock to the on position. Now you can press the Platen In button, which moves the table in until it reaches the stop. When you're using the stop, the table platen can always be moved out to the full travel length. This has been an overview on how to operate the jig mill. You explored what the jig mill is, why we use one, and how to use its settings. You've completed this machine tool video on Jig Mill Operations.